Hi, this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome back to No BS Hiring Advice Radio. It's a time where I spend about 15 minutes giving you some advice about how to be more effective with your job search. And I do this because with your hiring. I got my shows confused there. I do this because hiring doesn't have to be as hard, difficult, painful, or take as long as it does. Most of you are stuck in systems that really interfere with you accomplishing what you really want to accomplish, which is hiring superior talent, closing these recs out, moving your business forward. So again, 15 minutes once a week is designed to help you do this better. And by the way, you can receive a complimentary subscription to No BS Hiring Advice e-zine at my website. That address is thebiggamehunter.us. I put it out every other week, again, with advice to help you be more effective with your staffing. Now, this show is designed to, on this particular one, is going to be talking with how to be more effective with your staffing by avoiding some of the mistakes that you're making as part of your process. And I'll just simply say, I wish hiring managers and HR professionals were as well prepared as job hunters are at the time of their interview. I think job hunters have a little bit of an advantage because they take a couple of minutes to prepare themselves mentally. Most hiring managers don't. As a result, most interviews come off as being ad hoc when they really shouldn't be. They come off as the hiring manager is distracted when they really shouldn't be. So I'm going to start off by encouraging you, take 5 minutes before each interview. 3 minutes if that's all you can afford, but you can't afford to walk in with 0. Just get yourself prepared with what you want to cover to evaluate and assess this person. So that's point number 1. Prepare yourself. Number 2 is, and this happens way too often, all the last-minute cancellations of phone calls and interviews when people have set aside time to meet with you or speak with you. So I know you have priorities, and I know you have people who you're providing service to. And I know there are emergencies, but some of you do it way too often, which gives the potential hire the impression that, number 1, you don't matter to them, and number 2 is your environment is way too chaotic. Why would someone want to go to work in a chaotic environment? Seriously, that's what you're presenting to people. Why would they want to go to work in a chaotic environment? Oh, we're a wonderful organization. We're terrific. We're different. It's just this one time. Well, it isn't just this one time. And if you don't believe me, just get on the web and start looking at all the stories about your firm and what people's experiences are. You may be unpleasantly surprised by the feedback that people are putting out about how you're conducting yourself. Now, I already talked about lack of preparedness. Have you ever thought of having the resume ready so that you can reference it during the interview? How about arriving late or with constant interruptions or needing to step out of the interview in order to field, quote, a crisis that your staff could have easily handled? And if they can't handle it, what does that say about you as a manager? Most of the time, and I know that sounded harsh, but think about it for a second, and the impact on the job hunter. Most of the time, these crises aren't so much a crisis. What they are is someone has been trained not to think and is deferred to you all the time because they just don't want to be caught doing the wrong thing. Train them to think. That's far more important than anything else. Now, another mistake that people make is they don't ask enough hard questions. Now, I had a candidate on the phone yesterday, and I alerted him to a phone interview he was going to be doing with a hiring manager that was really going to work him over something fierce. They were going to go into such minutia about his background and about what he knew. And as soon as he thought they got deep, they would go even deeper. And he said, I love a challenge. And in point of fact, he called me up afterwards. I said, I think I did well, but at the end of the day, boy, that was something. Well, you want to go through your version of the challenge, which is going to involve compiling a list of questions that are going to really allow you to evaluate and assess people way earlier than you do. Now, for many of you, whether you're an HR or you're a hiring manager or a small business owner, a lot of your interview questions are pretty superficial. You ask people to talk on a superficial basis about what they've done and how they went about doing it. Have you ever just thought about throwing someone up at a whiteboard and having them present to you, even at interview 1, 5 minutes about some aspect of what the work would be and how they approach it in their current environment? There is nothing more pressure-filled than presenting. And for most people, when they are presented, they are doing a presentation. It's one of these things like root canal that causes them to have apprehension. But you're also going to get a sense of what their knowledge is and what their self-confidence is. Far better to do that than to drag out this process and wind up with someone who you're not really happy with when you could have found out in the first 30 minutes of conversation. So if you're doing this as a phone interview, you can just very simply say, could you do an impromptu presentation about fill in the blank? And just talk to me about what it does and how you go about doing it in your work. 5, 6 minutes, however long it takes, but I'd like to cap it at 5 or 6 minutes. You want to do that because you don't want them droning on ad infinitum and causing you not to listen. So again, a quick presentation that causes them to really answer some of the hard questions about their background and gives you a sense of their self-confidence. Another thing that people do is they talk too much. They talk about themselves too much. Now, it's one thing to do this at the end of the interview, when you're really selling the opportunity and selling the organization and selling what working for you is going to be like. But there's another thing about doing it 15 minutes into the interview. It just sounds like you're a blowhard. Now, one of the videos I did a while ago tips people off that the more you talk, the more you like them. That's how job hunters can interpret that. And it's way too early for most of you to be liking this person. All that's happening is your predisposition or bias is coming through. Instead, work on the evaluation. Don't overtalk the situation. Another thing people do wrong is they let candidates drive the interview. Now, I like a candidate to get a clear picture of the job at the beginning of the interview. So I'll ask them to say something to the effect of, thanks for making time to meet with me today. I spoke with Jeff Altman about the job and he gave me a brief description, but I'd like to get your take on it. Tell me about the job as you see it and what I can do to help. To me, that's fine because your job may have evolved since the time you created that job description. They should know what that is because if they're not qualified, why go on, right? Let them turn themselves off. From that point on, if they start driving the interview, I encourage you to just simply say, whoa, slow down there, fella. Or slow down there, lady. Let me work this one. I'm happy to get to that, but let me run the show here. I do that with candidates all the time that are trying to show me how powerful they are. All they're doing is turning me off. Interview number 1, only ask about what they're currently earning. Ask them about what else they have going on for themselves in their job search and where they are in the process. Sometimes your process is going to extend much longer than their availability. And you should know that in interview number 1, rather than thinking that you can go through this for weeks or months on end and have them waiting for you at the end. It is absolutely bizarre to me how many firms think especially in this job market, that they can interview ad infinitum, circle back to one of their earliest candidates, and have that person still waiting there for them. They aren't. There are labor shortages all over the world, and as a result, firms are aggressively hiring. Don't you want to know that you might lose this person that you're interested in? Minimally, you can speed up the process and get them in front of other people. Might there be someone else out there even better than this person? Sure. But what's so bad about they can execute the job? I can get them on board in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever, and not have to interview forever. And I can get this filled with someone who's really quite good. What's wrong with doing that? Oh, they have to be perfect. There is no perfect for yourself. There's no such thing as perfect. So, just move the process along. Find out where they are in the search, and don't overtalk your situation. So, I'm also going to say, avoid money in the first interview, except to confirm what it is they say they're looking for. Now, fit. This is often a sore subject with hiring managers because they want to bring on people that fit in with their organization. And I'm going to say two things on this subject and not go into a lot of detail. I've written and spoken about it many times. I'll simply say most of you are ill-equipped to assess for fit. You just don't know what you don't know. And as a result, you incompetently select people time and again because you think they're going to fit in with your organization. They won't. Number two is, why is fit so important anyway? Don't you want to get different inputs and viewpoints? Oh, we want to hire a team player. Tell me how you're going to evaluate that. Seriously, how are you going to evaluate for a team player that they're not going to give you their ideas and they're just going to say, wow, that idea of yours is so wonderful? No, it isn't. I'll simply say, you're not equipped to evaluate fit, and hiring for it is vastly overrated. Now, another thing people do, and this is going to be more apparent in the video than it's going to be in the podcast, I'll simply say you adopt the body language of arrogance as part of how you present yourself. Why? Because you're not interested in this person? Wrap up the interview, move on. Tell them where they're deficient. Be kind enough to do that, because that gives them a chance to counteract that, what could be a misimpression of their credentials, rebut it, and cause you, to then perk up a little bit and get more involved. So, if you're not interested, better not to adopt that hostile, arms folded in front of your chest posture or anything else that expresses disinterest, because you never know who they're going to be speaking with after their interview that's going to be turned off to your behavior, who you might have wanted to hire. So that's my advice for some of the mistakes that you're making on your interviews. Instead of doing that, just clean up your act a bit. It's just sloppiness on your part that you do a lot of these things. Also want to mention that if you like today's show, I hope you subscribe to No BS Hiring Advice Radio in iTunes or in Stitcher. I have it in both platforms as well as on Blog Talk Radio. If you're trying to fill positions, reach out to me. You can call me at 646-374-8656 or email me at jeffaltman@thebiggamehunter.us. Let's set up a time to speak. I'd love to help you with staffing. And if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, send a connection request at linkedin.com/in/the-big-game-hunter. I accept connection requests from people worldwide, except if you look like a spammer or scammer to me, except if you're a third-party recruiter. So this is Jeff Altman. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Hope you have a great day. Take care.